Hey, thanks for tuning in to the season finale of Extreme Reloading. You know, while this is the final episode of Season 6, we're not finished yet. You see, we started Season 6 talking about harmonics and barrel harmonics. And we conducted some ladder tests and some harmonic nodes, and we came to the conclusion that both harmonic node and velocity nodes are pretty valid ways of working up a brand new load for a rifle. And in those early episodes, I compared the load that I worked up as a harmonic node against my pet load that I created following optimal charge weight or velocity node approach using Lapua brass. The end result was that both approaches were extremely similar. You know, then we shifted gears a little bit and we focused on neck thickness and bullet tension or neck tension on the bullet. And this experiment used Federal Premium brass. What I just finished up is loading 20 rounds for our next experiment, bringing it all together, and I'm calling this one Nodes, Necks, and Sills. You see, what I've done is I took 10 rounds of my Lapua brass and I neck sized that using my Hornady match neck sizing die. I also took 10 cases of ADG brass and prepared that brass in the exact same way. Then I loaded it. I primed it with my 21st century priming tool and the Federal Premium Match large rifle primers. I loaded the ADG brass with 42.6 grains of RL15. If you caught our earlier episode, that is the powder charge that gave us the best, or leveraged the harmonic nodes the best and gave us the best results. Previously, it gave us a 0.69 or 0.7 MOA group at 200 yards. And I loaded the Lapua brass with 42.9 grains of RL15. That's my pet load right there, and that's the one that I developed following optimal charge weight, actually a number of years ago. All of these were topped off with 168.0 grain Sierra tipped Match King bullets. And these are all weight sorted bullets. So what we ended up with is some extremely consistent ammunition. Now, the neck tension, I was actually hoping to achieve a little bit more variability in the neck tension than as it really turned out. You know, even though I set up those cases during neck sizing to try to get some very different neck tensions, there's a lot of springback that really happens, and so you have to look at your final applied neck tension. And that's what I did. So I ended up creating 4 different 5-round groups. We're going to shoot those today in just a little bit. 2 of those groups, one using the ADG brass and another using the Lapua brass, has a neck tension applied to these bullets of 0.0024 of an inch. Another of these groups, again the Lapua brass, came in at a 0.0020 inch neck tension. And then the final ADG group was actually less than 1/1000th of an inch of tension on those bullets. Now, what we've seen in the past is where lighter neck tensions or looser neck tensions have resulted in my Ruger precision rifle. This has resulted in worse and worse or poorer groups, larger group sizes. And that's been pretty darn consistent through all the different the tests that we've put that through. In converse, or in contrast, the tighter neck tensions have given us better results. Now, I'm curious if that is going to hold true now that we have changed the brass. Now, looking at the neck tensions that I've achieved and what has happened in the past, I'm expecting that we're going to get between and probably a little bit over 1 MOA group sizes, maybe up to about 1¼ MOA group sizes. Nothing really fantastic. You recall that we did pretty darn good when we had just our basic harmonic node and even velocity node tests early in the season. But when I started playing around with this federal brass and the different neck tensions and neck sizing, the group sizes got pretty variable, pretty wild out there sometimes. And so based on the neck tensions that we've applied, that's what I'm expecting we're going to get when we go out to the range. 1 to about 1¼ MOA. Now, the other thing that's been happening is my rifle is shooting high. Now, I'm very reluctant just to start spinning the dials on my turrets to bring that down for a couple of reasons. One, this is all experimental loads and not my pet loads or my normal loads that I use. And secondly, I want to see what these rounds are actually doing as part of these experiments and tests. In one case, though, one of my rounds flew right off the paper. Got a chance to find it on the cardboard backer, and so I ended up still counting a 5-shot group. I hope that doesn't happen again. But I'm excited to head back out to the range and shoot this final test, nodes, necks, and sills. 4 5-shot groups, 20 rounds in total. Let's head out to the range. $25.01. Wow! Exactly the same speed. That's insane. 25.01. $25.01. That's 3 of them at the same velocity. $25.09. I might have pulled that one. 25.19. I'm going to go to the target or the bullseye in the upper right. A little bit slower. 24.68. .44 already has more range between the min and max as my previous set. That's nice. 24.71. $24.89. Here we go. .504. Oh, that shot high and to the right, off to about a 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock position. Oh, that one's really slow. What the heck happened there? 2480. .474. Now we got slower ones. That first group was far better. Now the difference here, of course, this is Lapua brass again. Everything else the same, but a much looser neck tension. It looks like it's not shooting too well out there. I see the rounds separated by a couple inches. .497. That's our 5. We go back to safe. Last 5. Target in the lower right. That one went to the 11 o'clock. That one felt nice. That's pretty close to the previous one. Wait, 500, wow. That is it. I don't know what you're thinking, but I just gotta say it. That was interesting. You know, the very first shot impacted off the paper. I was noted that before we even started, a little bit concerned with it, but I didn't think it would shoot that high today. You know, overall, the rounds grouped pretty much as I was expecting. In other words, I was getting about 1 to 1.25 MOA groups. However, when we look at the individual groups, things kind of really fell apart, flipped in an opposite order than what I was anticipating. The first group, where I had a high shot just off the paper, I'm not even sure because my cameras didn't pick it up, and so this group, I will note, is now down to a 4-shot group, and it ended up with a 1.37 MOA. Now you might recall that this was using Lapua brass charged with 42.9 grains of RL15, and this is effectively my velocity node optimal charge weight, or seeking the sill type of powder charge. The second group was ADG, and this one had the exact same neck tension, in other words 0.0024 of an inch. Everything else was exactly the same though. ADG brass, RL15, 42.6 grains. That load was developed, as you might recall, using harmonic node, and was a result of our ladder test. And then the other two groups, I shot from the tightest neck tension down to the loosest neck tension. And what do you know? The loosest neck tension gave us the best group. Now, this isn't a fantastic group. It's 1 MOA, 200 yards off the bench. So it's not terrible, but this rifle can do and has done better. And we saw it do quite a bit better earlier this season. So now that is what's very interesting. Pretty much all season long, tighter neck tensions equated with smaller groups. Looser neck tensions were equated with broader or larger groups. Looking at muzzle velocities, however, I would like to note that the Lapua brass, or the Lapua loadings, ended up giving us a very nice, very consistent muzzle velocity with only 8 feet per second standard deviation. Now remember, this is the load developed as a velocity node, what I call the sill type of velocities. And so I can't help but think that if I shot the same load repeatedly, I would probably end up seeing it perform better, especially over longer and longer ranges, probably see it perform better than the others that had a much larger standard deviation of those muzzle velocities. Now that's the theory, of course, but in my experience that has held pretty darn true over the years. So what do we make of all this? Well, I guess one thing we could say, relative to the results we've seen and even the statistical analysis we talked about in the previous episode of extreme reloading, we could say, well, this is just 4 more or less random groups. Some did better, some did worse, and the fact that you have larger and smaller group sizes is maybe in some ways attributable to neck tension, but there are lots of variables that affect group size, and neck tension is just one of those. That's a pretty viable and actually hard to argue with description or characterization of what we saw. But I think the take-home message now, or for me at least, is this. What we have seen is we have been experimenting with developing a precision rifle load. And what we've learned now actually over the years, if you've been a subscriber or you've been watching Extreme Reloading for a couple of years, what we've learned is that, number one, we need to use good brass. And Federal is okay brass, pretty good brass, but it's not up there with the premium brass like Lapua and ADG that we were using in this test today. In fact, Lapua and ADG, along with Norma, is really some of your most or highest premium brass that you can get. So we've learned that lesson quite a long time ago. Start with excellent brass. And I like to weight sort my brass cases and reduce the variability within, let's say, a bunch of Lapua brass cases. That's important. And that has proven to drive down our group sizes and make them more and more consistent. You know, a while ago, we did an experiment called Primer Mania, and that clearly demonstrated statistical significance that preparing the primer pockets, flash holes, and very uniformly seating those primers with a consistent recess pays dividends, drives down those group sizes, reduces the standard deviation of muzzle velocities. And we're using premium primers. I like to use CCI bench rest primers, and these Federal Gold Medal match primers are also excellent. Carefully weigh out your powder charges. Make them exact or precise to that tenth of a grain. Use very good, consistent bullets. And then work up your load. Now you can use either, and we saw this season, you can use either the harmonic node ladder test approach, or you can use a velocity node optimal charge weight approach. Both we saw will work just fine and give you a nice reliable load to make use of. Then, and here's what I think is the take-home message, once you have a load determined for your rifle, then you start tweaking it. That might mean changing or modifying the bullet seating depth just a little bit, thousandth here, thousandth there, shoot some more groups. Does your rifle like it better or worse than what it was previously? And also look at neck tension at that point. Does your rifle perform better or worse with tighter or looser neck tensions? Do you even need to turn the necks with your particular rifle? So I think that is really the take-home message that we saw. And for my Ruger Precision rifle, I don't see that it is preferring a particular neck tension. In fact, my go-to way of doing things with my neck sizing die, the Forster neck sizing die, works just as well as the Hornady neck sizing die that I used really for this experiment. I don't even know if I need to turn the necks. However, in an attempt to make my brass more and more consistent, if I have some brass that has inconsistent neck thicknesses, then I really think turning the necks is still going to give you some benefit. What's next? Well, we've got some more videos lined up for you in the next coming weeks. While this season of extreme reloading is coming to a close, I'm going to be switching gears a little bit, and I'm going to be returning to some PAC-T testing. Now, for those of you who regularly watch our channel, you might recall that the PAC-T tests were precision, accuracy, consistency, and terminal performance tested in clear ballistic gelatin. And what I'm going to be doing this spring, I got some pretty neat stuff coming up. I've been loading for my 45 ACP. I've been loading two different Speer Gold Dots. Yes, they're both 230 grain bullets, but one is the bullet designed for short-barreled pistols, and the other is our standard Gold Dot. I'm going to test to see if there's really any difference. We'll do those back to back. I've also gotten a hold of some other Speer Gold Dot bullets, 90 grain 9mm. Now that was a challenge to get that thing loaded, but there is some really cool results coming out with that one. I haven't shot it into the ballistic gelatin yet, but overall its accuracy and its performance in the FNX 9mm pistol I used for testing looked pretty darn promising. So I'll be doing quite a number of different handgun bullet tests, including the Federal HydroShock Deep 45 ACP. Little twist on the HydroShock we tested before, and I'm interested to see if there's really any difference. Some of these bullets you might recognize as something that you asked us to do, and so we are following up on that, and we'll be shooting some of these bullets and giving them a very good test. But not all the bullets in my PAC-T test are going to be pistol bullets. I actually am also going to be testing Hornady GMX. I've got two different GMX bullets I'm going to be testing. This is a 5.56 70 grain GMX bullet. I'll be giving this a good test all the way through the entire PAC-T test. You'll learn more about my experience with this bullet. And I have a factory load Hornady Superformance, and this is another GMX load. This one's for my 243 Winchester and 80 grain GMX. And we'll be back next winter, late fall, with another season of extreme reloading. And that season is going to be dedicated to bullets, bullets, and bullets. What do I mean by that? Well, you know, there's an awful lot of 168 grain bullets out there on the market. We're going to test them. We're going to test a bunch of different things about these 168 grain 308 Winchester bullets. I'm going to do another test on bullets, bullets, and bullets, and it's going to be the 68, 69, 70 grain bullets for the 5.56. We'll give that a good test as well. We'll be looking at consistency of bullets, performance of those bullets, accuracy. That's going to be a very fun season of extreme reloading, and I can hardly wait for that to come up a number of months down the line. So, take care. Thanks for watching. See you next season.